Welcome to Confession Stories, a platform for sharing poignant narratives replete with unexpected developments, profound emotions, and concealed facts. These narratives evoke emotions, provoke thought, and occasionally transform our worldview. Today, I wish to recount my personal narrative. This issue continues to bother me and burden my heart whenever I discuss it. I am Camilla, a stepmother. Approaching my 40th birthday, this is a story about how my life was once full of hope and promises spiraled into a nightmare I never saw coming. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so I can continue bringing you more fascinating true stories like this one. And don't forget to watch this video till the end and like the video because this story is going to be incredibly interesting. Please hit the like button to show your support. It all started so innocently, so normally, just like any other day in my life. I had been happily married to Michelson, a man I dearly loved who had 2 children from his previous marriage, Daniel, who was 20, and Michael, who was 18. I always knew that being a stepmother would come with its challenges, but I also thought that with time, everything would settle. The relationship between us was somewhat distant, but that was natural. I was the new woman in their lives, and I understood the importance of giving them space and letting them adjust to the changes in their family. Our relationship was inherently dynamic. Michelson and I had been together for a while, but it wasn't always easy to find the right balance. That afternoon, Michelson was away on a business trip, leaving me and his 2 sons at home, but I didn't think anything was out of the ordinary. Indeed, I experienced an unusual tranquility while standing in the kitchen preparing dinner, with the only sounds permeating the room being the clattering of cutlery as I diced vegetables and the simmering of the stew pot on the stove. The house was tranquil and serene, instilling in me an unusual sense of solace in the isolation. The silence was nearly overwhelming, and I absorbed the warm, robust aroma of the stew, anticipating a delightful meal for everyone upon their return. Suddenly, I heard rapid footsteps from upstairs. Before I could turn around, Daniel rushed through the kitchen door, his face ashen and his eyes filled with terror. "Mother, please come up here immediately. Michael is on the verge of death." His voice conveyed urgency and sorrow. The utterance of those words sent a chill through me. I was oblivious to the situation. My heart raced as the words reverberated in my mind. What do you mean? What is the situation regarding Michael? Did he experience an accident? Is he unwell? Questions inundated my head. My breath accelerated, and I lacked the time to contemplate without doubt. I abandoned all my belongings, my knife, the cutting board, everything, and pursued Daniel. We ascended rapidly, nearly in a haze, my legs propelling me up the steps, my pulse racing in my chest. Daniel advanced, his expression somber with concern, his steps rapid and resonant. I struggled to breathe as anxiety and confusion obscured my thoughts upon arriving at Michael's room. I was uncertain of what to anticipate. However, nothing could have equipped me for the sight that greeted me when the door opened. There, in the center of the room, stood Michael. He was entirely naked. His slim form, illuminated by the gentle light filtering through the window, did not exhibit a smile of happiness or relief. His look lacked agony or terror. Rather, his smile had a disconcerting, almost demonic quality. I stood motionless, incapable of comprehending what I was witnessing. It was a spectacle that rendered my heart frozen, caused my breath to falter, and immobilized my body, incapable of comprehension. "Michael, what is your current activity?" I stammered, my voice quivering. In bewilderment, I attempted to avert my gaze, yet the image seemed indelibly inscribed. indelibly etched in my memory. A portion of me wants to scream, to flee, to engage in any action, yet my body remains unresponsive. Before I could formulate my ideas, Michael swiftly traversed the room, seized my hand, and drew me inside. His actions were assertive and intentional. "Michael, cease." I attempted to withdraw, but it felt as if my body was immobilized and his grasp was excessively powerful. The door clicked shut. The door closed behind me, prompting a panicked turn. Daniel obstructed the doorway, his gaze reflecting a blend of perplexity and a more sinister emotion that instilled discomfort in me. He appeared to be conflicted between an incomprehensible matter and a far more distressing one. "Daniel, are the door. What is occurring? What is the reason? Are you executing this?" which I endeavored to uphold. I maintained my composure. However, my voice trembled with trepidation. I yearned to vociferate for answers, yet I was overwhelmed by the oppressive weight of uncertainty. As I was poised to assume control of the situation, an unexpected weight abruptly descended onto my shoulders from behind. Daniel was near, his breath warm across my ear. His hands clasped my shoulders delicately. However, there existed a might within them from which I could not evade. A shiver ran down my spine as he whispered, "Stepmom, we cannot bear to see you with Michelson." His voice was low and scratchy, resembling a confession. It was as though the universe had ceased its rotation, leaving me immobilized and unable to grasp the significance of his remarks. "What is the subject of your discussion? I do not comprehend," I stammered, attempting to turn and confront him, but his grip constricted, immobilizing me. His gaze remained fixed on me, devoid of uncertainty or remorse, exuding an unusual sense of resolve. At that time, Michael advanced towards us gradually, as if he were relishing each instant, prolonging it. The tension in the room escalated as he leaned in, his face mere inches from mine. His icy, calculating gaze penetrated me as if attempting to discern my very essence. "Mother," Michael murmured, his tone devoid of emotion and devoid of feeling, "please indulge us." The words struck me with the force of a physical impact. I had constriction in my throat and tightness in my chest. This could not be occurring. It could not be authentic. It cannot be, I cried within. Yet my body remained immobilized. The children I had once nurtured, the children I had, those I endeavored to protect, were now opposing me. I attempted to extricate myself from their hold, yet I remained ensnared. Michael positioned himself before me, with Daniel behind me and two walls constricting my space. I found myself with no avenue for escape as terror coursed through my body, rendering me increasingly immobilized. "Allow me to depart," I attempted to yell, but my voice wavered, feeble and quavering. It seemed as if my voice had forsaken me, rendering me impotent. Michael exhibited a subtle, cunning smile that elicited a shudder along my spine. "Mother, do not attempt to resist," he stated, his voice, gentle yet imbued with undeniable authority, conveyed, "We do not wish to harm you. We merely want you to understand your significance to us." The words lingered in the atmosphere, oppressive and stifling. What transpired? What was the cause of this occurrence? This was not what I had anticipated upon marrying Michelson. I never anticipated that circumstances would escalate to this extent. The minute elongated, with each second becoming an eternity. I endeavored to retain the remnants of my sanity. However, it was eluding me. I attempted to resist and repel them, but my body ceased to obey my commands. My mind and body seemed disconnected. Each touch and movement from them seemed to diminish a part of me. I sensed my resistance waning, diminishing progressively. I experienced an internal conflict, characterized by profound remorse and humiliation. Donning a strange garment, I experienced an inward tempest, an uncontrollable tornado. I experienced involuntary bodily reactions that instilled fear in me. I was aware that the situation was erroneous. I recognized it, crossed every line, but I couldn't stop it. I couldn't escape it. With every passing moment, I felt myself sinking deeper and deeper into this chaos, losing more and more of who I was. The principles I had once held so tightly were slipping through my fingers, and I was no longer the person I used to be. I was no longer in control. I had become a pawn in their game, a plaything for their desires. The days that followed felt like a blur every morning. I woke up next to Michelson. His peaceful face astark continued to the turmoil that raged inside me. His warmth, his trust, everything I had cherished in our life together now felt like a cruel joke. I felt trapped in a never-ending cycle of guilt and fear, unable to break free. Each time I looked into his eyes, I saw only love and trust I knew I had shattered, and yet I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth about the silence between Michelson and me, which grew heavier with each passing day. I could no longer look him in the eye without feeling the weight of my deception. I carried my secret like a stone in my chest, heavy and suffocating. The smile that had once come so easily now felt like a mask, hiding the deep sense of shame and fear that had taken root inside me. In the evenings when Michelson was at work or out with friends, I found myself alone with Michael and Daniel. The house that had once felt like a sanctuary now felt like a prison. Every time I saw them, I could feel their eyes on me. Watching me waiting for the next moment to strike their presence was like a shadow hanging over me, making every room feel suffocating. They had taken control of my life in ways I couldn't even begin to understand, and with every passing day, their hold on me grew stronger at first. I attempted to resist. I shouted. I pushed. I fought. But it was like trying to stop a tidal wave with a pebble. The more I fought, the more determined they became. It was as if my resistance only fueled their desire, making them bolder and more daring. The moments I once hoped would pass never did. Instead, they turned into habits, and I, who had once prided myself on my strength, had become weak emotionally, mentally, and physically. My mind screamed at me to stop, to get out, to run, but my body no longer obeyed. The struggle became less about what was happening and more about my own internal conflict. I felt like a prisoner in my own body, as though everything I had once believed in had been stripped away, piece by piece. My own thoughts had become my enemy every time I tried to make sense of what was happening. The truth seemed further out of reach, buried beneath layers of guilt and shame. At times, I would gaze into the mirror, yearning to find the person I once aspired to be, only to find a stranger, someone shattered and lost, someone who had let everything fade away. My reflection stared back at me with empty eyes, hollow and distant, as though I had ceased to exist long ago. I no longer recognized myself, and I didn't know who to turn to. There was no one who could understand the darkness I had fallen into. How could I explain to anyone what was happening? How could I tell Michelson, the man I loved, that his son's flesh and blood had broken me in ways I could never heal? How could I tell him that I had become their victim, their puppet controlled by their every? I couldn't even tell myself what was happening, let alone anyone else. The shame was suffocating, and every time I thought about confessing, a voice inside me told me that it would be the end of everything. Michelson would never forgive me. Michelson would destroy the life we had built together. Only the ruins of my own mistakes would remain. The burden of that potential immobilized me, rendering any action unfeasible. Yet there were instances when the guilt became unbearable. In solitude, I would weep, my tears saturating the pillow as I held it firmly against my chest. I yearned to scream and express the anguish and fury that had accumulated within me, yet I remained unable to shatter the oppressive silence surrounding me. The walls of my own psyche constricted further with each passing day, leaving me ensnared in my own silence and guilt. I began to contemplate the duration for which I could maintain the facade of normalcy. How many more days could I feign contentment beside Michelson while my spirit deteriorated within? Each night, I lay awake next to him, fixated on the ceiling, awaiting the embrace of sleep, only to be tormented by nightmares, visions of the events I had permitted to transpire. Michael and Daniel relentlessly pursued me in my dreams, their gazes fixed upon me, their voices reverberating in my consciousness. I found no escape, regardless of my efforts. They resided within me, and there was no means of expulsion. I made an effort. I sought solace in my work and minor distractions, attempting to divert my attention from the horror I was enduring, but nothing proved effective. Nothing could obscure the reality that I was living a deception. My life, my marriage, everything I had held to be true was based on falsehood. I allowed it to occur. I had given in to exploitation, and now there was no escape. I attempted to rationalize my thoughts. I convinced myself that I had no alternative and was powerless, yet I recognized the reality. I had permitted it to occur. I had displayed weakness, and now I must confront the repercussions of my own decisions. How could I confront Michelson? In what manner could I accomplish this? Disclose to him the inconceivable. How could I reveal that I had deceived him? In the most unfavorable manner, I grappled with the notion of revealing my truth to him. An internal voice incessantly cautioned me that it was too late. Disclosing my secret would culminate in irrevocable consequences. No forgiveness, no redemption, only anguish and devastation. The prospect of losing him, of forfeiting everything, was unbearable, compelling me to maintain my silence. However, I recognized that I could not harbor this secret indefinitely. Its burden was suffocating. I understood that I had to make a choice and confront the truth, regardless of its difficulty. Yet I was uncertain whether I was confronting the reality of my actions or the essence of my transformation. What I did comprehend was that this silence was not a solution. It would ultimately annihilate me and everything I held dear. If I failed to articulate my thoughts and reclaim control over my life, I would face dire repercussions. Consequently, I would remain eternally lost. I seek your assistance with guidance. Should I disclose all information to Michelson? Should I? Should I confess and confront the repercussions, or should I remain silent and attempt to continue living? Bearing this load, I hope that time will provide healing. If you have read this far, please refrain from judgment. I seek just relief and tranquility. I can no longer bear this weight alone. I seek reassurance that I am not the sole individual who has experienced such profound feelings of disorientation, despair, and entrapment. From my narrative, I have realized that silence merely exacerbates sorrow. It engenders additional secrets, falsehoods, and agony. I see now that I ought to have expressed my concerns earlier. I ought to have confronted the truth from the first, regardless of its difficulty. Yet it is never too late to rectify matters. I must summon the fortitude to proceed, and I shall, irrespective of the outcome or repercussions. I shall discover a method to liberate myself from this darkness. I will restore my life, dignity, and tranquility. Thank you for your attention. Kindly disseminate. Your reflections and expressions may assist me in discovering an exit from this narrative of confessions that culminates here, should you deem this tale thought-provoking. If you find this content engaging, kindly support us by liking, subscribing, and sharing your views and opinions. They are of paramount importance to us. Kindly feel free to submit your comments below. Your contributions empower us to persist in delivering additional narratives, facts, and authentic experiences. Thank you and farewell. We will see you in the subsequent video.